Hi guys, this is Chuck from Nepali Brewboy. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a small video from our own friend Mr. Stubby from Texas Brewing, showing you how to start your first brewing at your own home. If you are here for the first time visiting us, thanks again, and please do not forget to click the subscribe button below. We bring awesome and amazing video just for you. Thanks for watching. Let's check the video out.
Okay guys, now you can see we have our wort up to a boil. Now it's time to add the malt extract. The most important part about this step is that you need to make sure that you remove it from your heat source. The reason being is because if you for some reason happen to, the extract sinks all the way to the bottom and scorches, well, it can actually cause your beer to be a little darker than you want it to, and it can also cause it to be a little sweeter. So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn the fire off, and we're going to move it over here from the heat. This particular kit has liquid malt extract. It also comes in dry. I think it's a little easier to use liquid. That's what I prefer. It's a little less expensive as well. So this particular kit only has 5 pounds. Some kits will have more, some will have less. But this is where you're getting the majority of your sugar that your yeast is going to consume and make alcohol and CO2. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add this to the pot. As you can see, this is a lot like molasses or maple syrup. Actually tastes really good. If you want to put it on some ice cream or your pancakes, it tastes well too. So it is sticky and messy. The good news is it cleans up with a little bit of hot water. So okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add this to the wort here. Okay, you want to stir it in real well because the bottom of that pot is still really hot, so we want to make sure that we don't scorch it. Really helps too if you have another person to be able to help you out with this. Makes it a little bit easier to do. Okay, so we've about got all of it done in here. We still have a little bit more. You don't have to get all of it out of there. I mean, it's a good idea to get as much as you can, but you don't have to get every little last bit of sugar out of here. You can put some extra hot water in here to get the last little bit out of there. I usually don't bother with it too much. It's not going to add or take away from your beer too much, so rather than making a bigger mess, I just usually get what I can get out of there. Okay, now the next step is move it back over to the fire, and we're going to bring it back up to a boil. Then according to whatever your beer is, you're going to add some hops at different times during the boil. This is where you're going to get your bitterness, your flavor, as well as some of your aromas as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that in future episodes. All right, we'll see you after the next step. Okay guys, we've got our pot up just about ready to boil here. And what we're going to do is we're going to check our brew day schedule. It's going to tell us when we need to add our hops during the boil. This is a countdown from 60 to 0. A lot of recipes for the most part have a bittering hop as soon as it becomes up to a boil. Now the most important part is to make sure once you come up to a boil to watch your pot like a hawk. The reason being is that it's going to want to boil over on you. So what you want to do is make sure that when it comes up to a boil, make sure you get through that initial trying to boil over phase or foam up on you, and then you want to add your hop addition and start your countdown. Okay, what this process is called is actually what's called hot break. So there's a bunch of proteins coming to the top, and then what's going to happen is they're eventually going to coagulate and fall back out of the pot. This particular beer here that we have, it doesn't actually have a bittering hop until 45 minutes. A lot of times you'll see some recipes that will actually have later hop additions instead of at 60 minutes. This may have to do with bitterness, smoother bitterness. This particular beer was probably so we could get a little smoother bitterness to go with this sweet stout. Okay guys, we've gotten to our time for our first bittering hop, which is going to be at 45 minutes. Like I said, most of them are going to be closer to 60 minutes or right after the initial boil starts. This particular recipe says 45 minutes, so that means 15 minutes after the boil begins. Okay, so the other thing that's important when you're adding hops, you might have to watch it. I pour mine just directly in there. Some people use hop socks. I just use mine and put them directly in. The thing that's going to be you need to watch though is a lot of times your pot was going to want to boil over again when you add hops, but this particular one did just fine, so we shouldn't have to worry about it too much. So we have one more addition that's added at the last 15 minutes. According to whatever beer you're doing, they're all going to be different, so make sure you pay close attention to your recipe. So once we get this, we add our next hop addition. We're going to cool this down. We're going to actually use an ice bath to cool it down. One of the better ways to use it, to do it, is also a wort chiller. Most people don't have those available. When they first start out, they use an ice bath to cool it down. The other thing that we're going to use too is I actually cooled some water. We have some bottled water that I have in the refrigerator, and I'm going to add that back to the beer to actually try to cool it down too. It's really important that we cool this beer down as fast as possible once we're done. There's a lot of different reasons, but the main reason is bacteria likes warmer temperature. We're not brewing in a sterile environment, so we want to make sure that we cool it down as quickly as possible, get the yeast started in here, so if there happen to be any bacteria, it'll make sure to take care of it. The yeast will take care of it. Okay, it's actually the alcohol and CO2, but anyway. Okay guys, we're about down to our last step on this particular recipe, and it's actually adding some maltodextrin. What maltodextrin does is that adds a little body or mouthfeel to your beer. So if it's a heavier beer style, you might actually have this in your kit. Not every kit has this, but there are going to be a few that do. Make sure the most important part when you're doing your recipe, make sure you read your instructions and then read them a second time, because every beer is a little bit different. Although the procedure is the same, there may be different hop additions, different sugars additions, and such. Okay, so with that, what we're going to do is we're actually going to add our maltodextrin and our lactose. This particular beer has lactose in it. What lactose is it's a milk sugar, of course, and that's what gives it the little sweetness to your beer. So we're going to add those now. Okay, we're adding the maltodextrin. We add this in the last 5 minutes of this particular beer because we don't necessarily need to be cooked. It just needs to add, just to make sure that it's sterilized. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about next. As soon as we get this beer done and we start chilling it, we're going to talk about sanitation. Because it is one of the most important parts of brewing, and we always save that for last, so it'll be fresh on your mind. Okay, we've got the maltodextrin stirred in. Now we're going to stir the lactose in. If you taste lactose, it's not really overly sweet. It's not like sugar sweet. So it's not going to add a whole lot of really super sweet flavors to your beer. Okay guys, we're going to let this boil for about another 5 more minutes, and then we're going to start our chilling process. All right, see you at the next step.